Today we had planned an event around my inaugural address. Today, April 16, 2020. Unfortunately, we could not organize this event because of Corona. What I realized though is that my inaugural address could not be postponed, and that's why I'm here today in an empty aula, in an empty university building that is usually full of life, where 26,000 students are walking around doing their thing. My children are sitting here in front of me. My parents, my partner, my brother, and some colleagues are here at a safe distance from each other. They are the people that are closest to me, that matter most. So I'm really grateful that they can be here today. My parents represent the system that I originate from, while my children represent the future. And I, of course, hope that they grow up in a world that looks so much wiser and brighter than the one that we all feel stuck in today. So let me share with you what I wrote 2 months ago. It is probably not a surprise to you that our world is in crisis. The dominant focus on economic growth has led to climate change, scarcity of precious resources, and increased inequality. We're using and abusing Mother Earth and have lost our connectedness to nature, others, and ourselves, as if we have collectively forgotten that we all belong to one ecosystem. The current linear economy of take, make, use, and waste has driven our planet's ecology and society towards a collision course, and it is really now or never. If we don't alter the course towards a circular economy today, then when? When will it become urgent enough for us to take action? Which disaster is needed for us to wake up? We desperately need substitutes for the current neoliberal paradigm which underlies our linear society and prevents us from becoming an economy of well-being. I'd like to suggest some ideas of how to develop and embrace alternatives to our current system, but let me start with a story. When I started my first business back in 2004, I had no idea what entrepreneurship was all about. Me and my best friend felt a need to change the fashion industry by first promoting and later selling sustainable fashion brands in our store in Amsterdam. We were not trained as entrepreneurs, but as fashion designers. Incubators didn't exist yet, let alone impact investment for social enterprise. So we learned by doing, relating, creating, and connecting. These practices, entrepreneurial practices, turned out to be at the core of my enactments and all the other ventures that followed. As a result of my PhD, I started reflecting on these embodied experiences of doing entrepreneuring as creative world-making, an ongoing movement of inventing and relating between humanity and materiality. We call this an affirmative approach to entrepreneurship, which is intrinsically relational and radically contrasts dominant perspectives of entrepreneurship. Instead, it invites people to be open and creative like a child, to play, to explore, to experiment, and to take risks. And the professorship is developed around this perspective of business, leading to 3 key research themes. First, we believe that enterprise should serve society and not the other way around. In order to achieve that, we highlight the importance of a process approach in studying the transition from a linear to a circular economy. Within my research group, we specifically adopt a practice lens, as we believe that 21st century economics will be practiced first and theorized later. Taking an affirmative perspective of entrepreneuring as a practice and a process enables us to move beyond the view of the entrepreneur as the central, economic, most often male actor endowed with exceptional qualities. This heroic figure, they hold the promise and bear the load of revitalizing society, leading us into the promised land of economic growth and prosperity. But let me explain why I have a problem with the concept of growth as well as the entrepreneur. First, While greenwashing and rebound carry a negative connotation, a concept such as growth is, even in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, still perceived as a positive force for creating a more sustainable society. Our focus on and definition of growth, they need to be reframed as it is toxic for the system that we're living in. We should reconsider growth by looking at nature. Trees start with growing exponentially in their first few years, but then comes a point that they become regenerative. They stop growing and start thriving, bearing fruits and spreading seeds. Second, the practice approach enables us to decouple the act of entrepreneuring from one sole actor, one person, and rather looks at the practices people enact in relating with each other and their environment. Viewing entrepreneuring as a process consisting of practices enables a more inclusive perspective and allows business to become a form of art, activism, and even spirituality. It allows everyone to become an entrepreneur, not necessarily by starting a business, but by developing, nurturing, and expressing entrepreneurial qualities that have a positive impact. It is an open invitation to become a change agent or angel of change, not as that lonely hero at the top, but as the unique embodiment of a larger social movement towards a regenerative society. The second research theme within the professorship considers value as a big word in two ways. First of all, we believe that a transition to a circular economy is not a transition just of materials or technologies. It is most of all a transition of values. And second, while circularity is a broad concept that can be approached through different lenses, the way in which things are valued and how we create and extract value lies at the heart of the transition. We face an ever-growing need for alternatives to how we perceive and understand value, what is considered valuable, and how and by whom it can be created. When we decouple value from its economic connotation, it remains one of the hardest concepts to tackle, while it can be perceived as one of the core ideas that shape society. And maybe that is the reason that we often reduce values, which are moral, cultural, messy, qualitative, and difficult to measure, to value, which is usually economic, quantifiable, and can be measured. In a transition from a linear to a circular economy, it is essential to focus on reclaiming the creation and extraction of value. If we don't understand value as collectively crafted, it will be very hard to change things, which is why we specifically focus on co-creating a multiplicity of values originating from an ethics of care. An ethics of care we consider as being at the core of the value discourse, fueled by the recently published Oxfam report, Time to Care. This report signifies a fundamental flaw of our economic system and the society we have built, based on its principles of self-interest and financial gain. The value of the billions of hours spent on unpaid care work in our societies is about 11 trillion a year. That's a whole lot of zeros. This alone should be a decisive argument to shift the entrenched perception that unpaid work isn't valuable, leading to lower levels of well-being for women and men alike. My invitation would be that an affirmative perspective of entrepreneuring can buttress the urgency of reclaiming value in a playful way. Play awakens agency in people and empowers them to view the world through the eyes of a child. It opens up the capacity to reimagine the realities that we as adults are often cemented in. This playful human being, or homo ludens as we call it, adds to that multifaceted personality of the entrepreneur as someone who experiments with how to synergize economic needs with caring for self and the environment. When we acknowledge that everyone has a capacity to care, as well as to become entrepreneurial, Imagine the society we can create together. Okay, the third and last research theme of the professorship evolves around the aesthetics of sustainability, as to me, they are crucial in the transition we're facing. In the circular economy, often the focus lies on technological aspects, such as life cycle assessment, supply chain management, and cleaner production systems, where rational knowledge creation, I always talk about the supercomputer, is favored over intuitive and emotional development. Conversely, aesthetics enable us to focus on corporeality, sensory experience, and the beautiful. The cultural and aesthetic sustainability literature involves the inclusion of the arts as a form of aesthetics into informing the transition to more sustainable practices. In essence, when you think about circular economy, it originates from concepts such as cradle to cradle and biomimicry. And it departs from the notion that our Earth offers an abundance of resources. And instead of exploiting them, we should look closely in order to learn how we can build resilient, self-sustaining ecosystems like the ones we find in nature. We are in need of rediscovering our deep connection with and appreciation of nature, which requires us to move beyond that supercomputer and employ an aesthetic perspective of sustainability. This perspective affords us to marry ethics and economics within a holistic framework for making informed business decisions. And we can stay close to home when we pay attention to our bodily system as part of nature rather than juxtaposing it with nature. It can support our sustainability efforts. Our aesthetic lens, our focus on reclaiming value, and our perspective of entrepreneuring as social change affects all the activities within the circular business professorship. For example, when it comes to innovating education. Revising education for the context of circularity is essential and understudied. Barely 2% of the 90 circular research leaders in the Netherlands specifically focus on education for circularity as a strategic research theme. We need to rethink the foundational core on which our current educational system rests, to challenge the hidden curricula of unsustainability. And some of our research attention already went in this direction, but we want to draw more on aesthetic approaches, as they, rather than only cognitive approaches, can support deep sustainability learning. We approach education as an embodied, multisensorial activity that has potential to deeply affect the learners that are involved in it, teachers, students, as well as other change makers. My purpose with entrepreneuring a regenerative society is to highlight the importance of reshaping business towards an economy of well-being. Reclaiming value as a constituting factor in a caring society requires a tilting vision in which aesthetics can play a key role. An aesthetic practice approach enables us to study the process of transitioning from linear to circular and to unravel how change angels collectively co-create a multiplicity of values. To have an eye for beauty, the self, and the other, to connect with nature and to focus on the real, lived, mundane experiences of everyday entrepreneuring, these are keys to make regenerative the new business as usual. Let's play, learn, and be entrepreneurial together towards a regenerative society as our dot on the horizon. I started my address with a story about fashion, and I will end it with fashion. This outfit that I'm wearing is carefully curated, and each item carries a story. My pants have been developed in co-creation with a designer, and they're made from a piece of fabric that I had in my closet for over 12 years. I bought it in Paraguay many years ago from a pioneering organic cotton company. And I found it a couple of months ago and thought, wow, I want pants from this cotton. So here I am honoring all those local entrepreneurs around the world that are making a difference. My shirt is from a local clothing library initiative, and it allows me to rent or borrow items without clogging my wardrobe. So I can take it back again and borrow something new. And my boots were white 15 years ago when I bought them. And I didn't wear them for a very long time because they just didn't fit my style anymore. But I have a wonderful sister-in-law, and she painted them black for me in a very professional way. So here I am with my evangelical boots. You see the cross a little bit on them. As I am presenting my vision to you in these troubled times, I'm wondering, does Corona suffice to push the reset button for us as a humanity? Or do we need more warnings? The motto of this university is, let's change, you, us, the world. And we've all shown the last couple of weeks that we can adjust and adapt our behavior. And because of it, the air is cleaner and fish are back in the once very polluted waters. We see how many angels of change rise in solidarity for their fellow human beings. They give music concerts in the gardens of elderly homes. They do grocery shopping for the disabled, and they support local entrepreneurs who suddenly need to rely on welfare. Overnight, we reclaim the value of care and education, two fundamental pillars of our society that have suffered systematic budget cuts, as financial value seems to be the only thing that matters. Will we be able to consider Corona not as a crisis, but as a sign to eliminate the clutter from our lives and highlight only those things that really nourish us so we can thrive like trees? What would happen if we invite people to build regenerative businesses that fundamentally do more good than harm and that are not simply circular by design, but are vehicles for personal and societal transformation? So, originating from a desire to fashion the future, this ensemble, as well as the empty building in which I'm standing, it encapsulates, affirms, and empowers me. And it is my aspiration that you will be left with a similar sensibility as a lighthouse, an illuminating beacon of hope.